Hello, and welcome to another episode of Two Chicks, One Show, where we recap and review one currently airing show, an episode a week as it airs. My name is Frank Randall. Two chicks are Tricia Ennis, me, and Kait Calabro, and the one show is Outlander. I'm very mad that Frank isn't in the show more, so I'm using him because he's my only Funko Pop from Outlander. So as Frank has already introduced, we are recapping and reviewing Outlander, an episode a week as it airs. We are on to Season 2. Episodes 2 and 3. We are going to start, though, with episode 2.
Yeah, so episode 2 opens with another Claire voiceover talking about how awful it is to live in such a big house in France and run a French household and all that kind of jazz. We get a new character, a new kind of herb guy, like the first ever anthropology store is what my dad called it when he came on. So Claire has a new herb-like friend. Jamie finally meets Prince Charles and they start talking. Jamie starts infiltrating the rebellion, and then they get invited to French court where a lot of weird stuff happens, and it just proves how liberated the French people are. And while at court in Claire's very sexy red dress, they spot a familiar face in the crowd. Well, actually, Bearded Bestie spots him first. The Duke of Sandringham is there, and with him is his new secretary, Alexander Randall, who drops a massive bomb that our beloved, well, not so beloved, BJ, aka Blackjack Randall, is very much alive.
Dun dun dun.
Dun dun dun.
I feel the need to point out that he's not an herbalist, he's an apothecary.
Oh, okay.
Which is like very different.
Okay. Well, he uses stuff. I don't know.
Yes, he does use herbs, but he uses them in a similar way to the way that Claire uses them, except that he also kind of sort of maybe does magic.
Maybe.
And they also tend to have like not just medicines but poisons. Apothecary played a very crucial role in Romeo and Juliet. Mm-hmm. But anyway, it's an apothecary. Yeah. Anyway, excuse me. Anywho, so this episode, like the last episode, deviated from the book. Just a reminder to our viewers/listeners. We're going at this season as we did the second half of last season, where I've read the book, most of the book, and Kait has not read a single word of the book, although she does know certain things by accident. So I'm going to be trying to non-spoilery compare the two, while Kait just remains oblivious and probably says some stupid stuff.
Probably, yeah.
You've already said a couple of things. I'm not going to tell you what, though.
Yeah.
So this is the last episode deviated a little bit from the book, just in that it squished a lot of the stuff down from the beginning of the book, but it also like completely changed where the story started without changing what happened necessarily. Like they expanded stuff that you sort of get just like an overview of for like a paragraph in the beginning of the book, whereas like the first 8 chapters are something totally different. Mm-hmm. This episode was the first time I really noticed that they were deviating in a lot of little tiny ways from the plot. Like the same things were getting accomplished, but in different ways, which I thought was interesting. Wasn't necessarily bad, but was occasionally kind of like, I don't really understand why you changed that. Like, why was it necessary that she didn't know who Mary Hawkins was when she first meets her? Because in the book, she knows full well who that is.
Yeah, but then, I mean, we're still talking about episode 2, but then in episode 3, she puts the pieces together.
Yes.
So.
But I was just saying, in the book, they meet Mary Hawkins. Actually, they just hear about her, like, showing up in France. And she says to Jamie, like, she says she's supposed to marry Blackjack Randall. Mm-hmm. Of course, she won't be able to do that now. Like, this must be what happens when you kill the character and you kill the guy. And now she has to go find a different future.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, I know. But that was one of the biggest things that I noticed, that I was just kind of like, I don't really know why you did that, but okay. It just seemed like a weird deviation. The biggest deviations, though, probably the most consistent ones, were that there were these little moments throughout the episode where Claire would do things that in the book Jaime did. So the big thing of this episode is that Jaime is going to meet with the Bonny Prince Charles Stuart, who is the guy that's actually going to mount the campaign to win the English throne back for himself. Because his father, James Stuart, is in exile, blah, 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 blah. You know a little more about the history than I do. But so Jaime goes and meets with him at a brothel, and like they have this whole discussion where Charles is saying like the biggest thing that he needs for the campaign is money, so he needs Jaime to go to the French court and meet with the Minister of Finance and get him, get King Louis to commit all this money to the campaign.
Mm-hmm. And the reason, historically speaking, that Prince Charles cannot be accepted at court is because he is kind of like him and his father are exiled royalty who are claiming a right to a throne that they currently don't sit on. So they're not recognizably officially a prince or a king. So if King Louis of France were to welcome him into his home, that would basically be like a slap in the face to the current English monarch. So that's why he can't directly go to Louis, and he's doing all these backroom deals.
Mm-hmm. And since France and England aren't yet, buddy-buddy, they're sort of in a tenuous relationship, so Louis can't really do that without real reason.
Yeah.
So, Jaime and Claire and Murtaugh sort of like have this meeting where they talk about, how we're gonna make sure that his war chest remains empty. And this is all Claire. Like Claire is making the plans and saying like, we need to make sure that he doesn't get the money. And the best way to do this is for us to actually get into court, meet and make friends, do exactly what Charles Stuart wants us to do, and then convince the Minister of Finance not to finance the war.
Yeah, and it should be like Charles is crazy.
Oh, Charles is completely crazy. Another deviation from the book, and people who are more aware of what happens in the book than I am from my like single sit through where I'm only half paying attention because man is that thing long. Can correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like in the book, Charles, while he was interested in claiming back the throne, he seemed characterized as much more annoying, whiny, like kid than anything else. Like in the show, he's constantly going on and on about how like all this rhetoric about winning back the throne and the Stuarts' rightful claim to England and yada yada. He seems like he talks about it like it's his divine destiny.
Yeah, I think and I have not read the books. From my point of view, he seems like he's riding on it's his fate. It's what God wants, a Catholic on the throne. And I'm still getting that at a whiny privilege spin to him where he was like deprived of something that was his birthright. So I think that's more of the reason why he wants it, other than like he doesn't really care about Scotland or anything. It was something that he should have got that was taken away from him
before he was even born.
Yeah, so now he really wants it.
Yeah, but in the book, it seems from what I remember of everything that they talk about in this section of the book, Charles talks a lot about being in love with a woman who's married.
Oh yeah, we don't get any of that.
He's just constantly going on about like half requited love and how like they can't be together because he's married and like all this stuff where he basically talks to Jaime as though he's like an old school buddy. Like he becomes really good friends with Jaime because he's sort of someone he commiserates with as opposed to, his most trusted confidant in the Jacobite rebellion. Like it never seems like the Charles Stuart of the book was as invested in the rebellion as the one from the show. The one from the show, it seems like they're setting him up to be a lot more sinister and batshit than the one in the book, so that you kind of already sort of fear him.
Yeah, I mean, in the show, he doesn't mention anything about being in love with anyone. It's more like this, like they throw like the religious thing to it, to the point where it's just like uncomfortable. And even Jaime and Murtaugh are just like this, like they both go back to Claire and say like he's a loon.
Yeah, well, because they're both like Catholic, but they're not like God demands that he be king. Yeah, and that's something that they've actually done a lot with that I like in the show, is that they've added in all these scenes where Claire isn't present.
Mm-hmm.
Because in the book, it's all from Claire's perspective. So you never see the stuff where Jamie is at the brothel. You don't see, anything that Jamie is by himself at. He then tells Claire the story of what happened. So you get it all, from firsthand accounts, but you don't actually see it.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that you're actually getting to see this stuff, but it does mean that you encounter a lot more directly with Charles Stuart, whereas everything in the book is secondhand. And it means we got to see this sort of scene between Jamie, Charles, and Murtaugh. And I don't know if Murtaugh was at that meeting in the book, because Murtaugh plays a much larger role in the show. And I know you're happy about that because Murtaugh's your favorite.
Murtaugh's my favorite.
But, you get to see them sort of be, while completely saying truthful things, like being very, Scottish pride.
Yeah.
And making it seem like they're completely, on his side.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, the episode opens with Murtaugh pretty much declaring how much he misses Scotland, and he even says that he misses Angus and Rupert, which honestly I think we all do. I mean, I miss Angus and Rupert every episode.
I'm sure the sheep don't.
Probably not. And they're trying to fight. Jamie's trying to train his hand back. They're still both of them want to go back to Scotland so bad, but they know that they have to try to convince this lunatic not to go there, to stop this rebellion, and they have a mission. And even at the end of this episode, it kind of comes full circle, because both of them want to go back and they think they're going to go back soon. And then when they find out that BJ's still alive, well, when Claire finds out BJ's still alive, it's kind of well, you ain't going back to Scotland anytime soon, because it's not very safe.
Well, one of the reasons in the book that they talk about how they can't really go back to Scotland is that Jamie is still very much a wanted man. If he is found by the English at all, especially because they believe that they killed, an officer in the English army, he will be killed immediately upon arriving back in Scotland. So that's one of the reasons why they don't go back. That, and they're trying to stop the rebellion. But, so as we were saying, they're trying to get their way into court. And that was one of the biggest differences I saw, which wasn't necessarily bad. It was interesting because it gave Claire a lot more agency in the plan and in what they're doing to stop the rebellion. Claire weasels her way into court through her friendship with Louise, who I hate.
You don't like her?
She's so obnoxious.
That's the point, though.
I know, and they do a very good job of making her someone I do not want to hang out with.
I don't know, I like her.
I do not. But, she sort of weasels her way into court that way and asks, can my husband come along? Whereas in the book, Jamie is immediately invited to court because of his station as a laird and also because of his station as Jared's, stand-in.
Yeah, I thought when Jared went to deal with stuff and they took over the business while he was gone, that he said that they would be invited to court.
Yeah, and that is what happens in the book. Jamie is immediately invited to court. He just goes to court. Yeah. And he goes and he doesn't really like court because it's not really his scene. Yeah. And he comes back and he tells Claire all about the stuff, the dressing of the king and all that nonsense. Claire never sees that. It's never a part of when they go. But the second time Jamie goes to court, Claire comes with him. So Claire has no hand in getting them into court.
Yeah, but then they do. My question is, who is Louisa married to, or what is her, they never explain her status in
I don't remember
the class system that
I think she's a baroness.
Okay.
I think she's something like that. She's, or a countess or something. She's, she is the aristocracy.
Yeah. I just wasn't, they never, everyone else has, these fancy titles, and they're just my friend Louisa.
Yeah.
And she's sitting there and she has a monkey as a pet, and it's just
her freaking monkey.
Overindulged. It just is so overindulgent.
It's so France.
Yeah. The whole time, and it's so stereotypical France. It's everything that you think, which I don't know.
It's everything you assume happened in the French court.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm just like, sometimes like part of me is just like, it's a bit much, but then it's a TV show.
Yeah. Some of the other things is they just sort of like change the order of like how things happen. But I like that they still included a lot of the stuff that Jamie doesn't like about France. So like Claire getting her legs and armpits waxed.
Yeah.
Uh,
No, it wasn't even, it was her honeypot.
Well, her honeypot too, but he doesn't mention, like, okay, he figures it out in a totally different order. Like, in the book, she's getting ready for bed, and like she lifts her arm and he flips out.
Okay.
Because she removed the hair from under her arm. And she's like, she says like, it's the first time I felt clean in months. And like properly clean. And he's like, I don't understand what that even means. And then she's like, well, if you don't like that, you won't like what I did to my legs. And then he loses it about that too. Like, he doesn't understand why she would do that. And I liked it because it was a nice little reminder that he and Claire also don't come from the same place.
Yeah.
Like, that they have very different understandings of things in society. And it was kind of interesting that, to us, it's like, oh yes, of course you would do that. That's how you feel correct.
I think it's also interesting when you have Louisa and then Mary Hawkins in the same room, because it's like
they were not in the same room for that conversation. In the book, they weren't in the room for that conversation.
Oh. I don't know which conversation, because there's two.
The one from the second the episode that we're going to get to later.
Episode 3. Because it just like kind of shows the stereotypical like French woman versus the stereotypical like English lady, and it's just like they're so polar opposites. Like, Mary doesn't like even want to be in a nightgown, and like Louisa is lounging on a chair with her like tits out and getting her like bikini.
She just like spreads her legs.
Yeah, and like Mary is like in a gown and a robe. She's like, I feel naked. And I just like, I mean,
as much as I dislike Louisa, I also have to admire her like just lack of shame. Like completely
zero fucks given at all times. Like, it's just like but I mean, majority of the second episode is spent at court. So Claire and the boys get ready for court, and Louisa hooks Claire up with her dressmaker, which clearly Claire does say that she had a hand in designing the dress.
No, and that's another thing that I loved from the book that I was glad they included, was the red dress and the way that Jamie reacted versus the way that Claire felt about it.
Yeah. So she comes down the grand staircase, and she's in that, we've all seen this gorgeous dress that she's wearing. And like Myrta, like jaw to the ground. Jamie's just like, what the fuck? And he basically goes like, are you insane? Like, what are you wearing? And there's like just a lot of boob.
Yeah, there's a lot of boob going on, and I like that they included that, because it was another nice like, Jamie doesn't really understand French people thing. But one of the big differences, because he hadn't been to court yet, one of the arguments that Claire uses to get him to be like, okay, fine, whatever, is, you've been to court. You remember what the women there were wearing? Is this at all outrageous compared to that? And he's like, okay, fine, no. But he's like, but it's also, you, and I don't want all these men to be looking at you, obviously.
But she has a fan.
But she has a fan, and he says, and I like that they included the line, but you should get a bigger fan.
Yeah.
In the book, she does get a bigger fan.
Oh.
She actually goes back, picks out the biggest fan she owns.
I didn't know she had like a fan collection.
She has a fan collection. And uses that one instead of the little dinky one that she has covering her boobs. But then the fan like comes into play later in court, which we didn't see, which was funny.
Oh.
Because there are like men who are just talking into her boobs, and so she covers them up.
I mean, they arrive at French court, and they are almost automatically greeted by Jamie's ex-girlfriend.
Yep.
Who is now a widower.
Widow.
Who Jamie dueled her husband and lost the duel.
Yeah, when Jamie was 16 or something, when he was or 18, whatever, when he was in France, when he was like going to studying with whoever, in France, he and she had sort of like a torrid affair, and there was sort of a love triangle thing going on with this other guy, and he and Jamie had a duel with swords, which Jamie won, but he didn't kill the guy, he just like hit him. And then she went on to marry said guy, and then he died.
And then he died. So I guess she never got a save the date or, announcement of Claire and Jamie's marriage.
Yeah.
So she was kind of...
Well, it was a little spur of the moment.
Yeah, it's true. She didn't get a chance to send her, glass, pitcher to them as a wedding gift. So in her way, she invites Jamie and Myrta to go watch the king get dressed, because this is like a big thing. It's a big honor to actually go and watch the king prepare to come out to court.
I think it was actually a big thing to watch the king basically exist.
Yeah.
Because,
true.
I vaguely remember there being other things that you watched.
Well, I know, classically speaking, people would watch the king and the queen have sex for the first time.
Yeah, I vaguely remember that.
Yeah, I mean, if you've ever seen Marie Antoinette,
yes,
it was a big thing, which is
his grandson.
Napoleon takes over. He out of the Revolution, up rises King Louis, actually. So he's the next monarch after the guy that we're currently seeing.
Yes.
Yes,
but it's not his son; it's his grandson.
Hmm?
It's his grandson, not his son.
Yeah,
I just thought that was interesting. I googled it.
So they enter this room with a bunch of other dudes because women aren't allowed to go.
Mm-hmm. Which, that's kind of a blessing, honestly.
Yeah, honestly, you would not want to go see this. And they're watching the king try to take a poop.
But he's quite constipated.
Because
he doesn't get enough roughage.
I guess, stereotypical again, he's had too much cheese. And cheese is binding.
Unless you're lactose intolerant.
I mean, I don't think that existed back then. I think it was just
did, but not for the king, apparently.
Yeah. So he can't poop. He's having a really hard time. And they're trying to coach him how to poop and relax him as a bunch of people are watching him.
They go on this whole thing about you should eat a traditional Scottish breakfast.
Yeah, so then Jamie recommends he eats porridge. And the king is insulted by this because that's a peasant food. But considering he has not shit in a very long time, he later comes up to Jamie when they're out in court and goes, porridge, and then just walks away. And that's all we see of our king. Is him trying to take a poop and then walking around.
Could you imagine that being your audition scene?
Can
you show us how it looks to be constipated?
I mean, he did a good job, I guess.
He did.
Good for him. He's probably so proud. He's Mom and Dad, everyone watch my first episode of Outlander, and the first thing they see is him trying to take a royal shit. But anyway, so while the boys are off watching the king try to take a poop, Claire, Louisa notices he's the head of finance.
He's the minister of finance.
Minister of finance is walking around.
Duvernay.
And Claire goes oh, I'm gonna go get some air or something Clary. She's gonna go do something Clary and she goes outside, and Louisa goes up to the minister of finance. She's oh, my, this English lady, my friend, she's in the beautiful red dress. She really wants to meet you. And I guess besides watching the king poop, the other reason people go to court is just to hook up with other people's husbands and wives, because it's
France.
It's just a sex party. So
royal orgy.
So the minister of finance thinks that this means that Claire wants to canoodle with him. So he finds her out by it was gorgeous. I don't know if they actually shot at Versailles or not, but it was actually beautiful. And he starts to hit on her and making out with her feet, and she's yeah, and she's pushing him off, and then of course Jamie comes out and doesn't really understand what's happening, and then throws the guy into this body of water.
As Claire's no.
She goes, that's the Minister of Finance. So the guy is like super chill. Like he's not pissed off at all.
I think he's just drunk.
Yeah. So they go back inside and he's trying to like reshape his wig. It's not working.
Like,
he might be my new favorite. I love this guy. So he's trying to shape his wig and he's like being really apologetic and he's like, please don't tell my wife if she finds out that I've tried to have sex with another woman. She's gonna kill me. So Jamie's like, oh, don't worry about it. We won't tell anyone. And he goes, well, what can I do for you? And he's like, oh, just your friendship is enough because this is the guy that they want to talk to.
right.
And this is when in comes the king after getting fully dressed. And he notices the Minister of Finance has a wonky wig and he makes some kind of comment like, next time you come here, make sure you got a good wig. And then he does the porridge thing. And then with him is a woman, another crazy, a woman walking around in a corset, but with no like full-on top, so her boobs are out, and then she's got crap on her nipples.
Yes, and that was another thing that I was wondering if they were going to include in the show, because it's another, like, it's like a chapter of just, let's throw shit at Jamie he doesn't understand. So he, like, has never seen a woman shave her armpits and her legs, or her honeypot, as he calls it. He doesn't understand all of this boobage happening with his wife. And then they also literally throw just another woman's tits in his face.
But it's not just even
not
like
just that, it's nipple piercings.
It's not, yeah, like I think it would be, it's whatever she had on her nipples that were just outside.
They were nipple piercings, but they were like really elaborate.
And Myrta was fascinated. I mean, now that I'm talking about this episode, it's so pervy. Like when you think about it, there's just a lot of weird shit happened in the second half of this episode. There's just like, what happened during this time?
It's a lot of that during the book too. It's just a lot of, here's a bunch of weird stuff.
Here's like, I read a Wikipedia page about what it was like in France during this time, and I'm going to just throw it all in here.
Nipple piercings, got it.
Yeah, crocodile blood, yeah. Like just like random crap.
But it's not really crocodile, it's pig.
Because crocodiles don't go to France. And I guess as Myrta is following nipple piercing through the room, he spots the Duke of Sandringham.
Oh, but I want to say, if you thought, hey, Mom and Dad, watch me poop on a toilet for 10 minutes was weird, how about, hey, Mom and Dad, I'm nipples.
That's true. Oh, God. So, Myrta being the most brilliant man and the most honorable man and the love of my life, chases the Duke and is like ready to like stab him through the heart.
Like he goes to pull his sword.
Yeah. And Jamie's like, you can't do that. You're like at court. The king is over there. Like if you do that, they'll kill you. So in comes Jamie and Claire, and they're all, you know, the Duke of Sandringham is just being his dukey self, and he's just like, oh, it's so nice to see you, and blah, 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 blah.
I'm sorry I forgot to deliver that pardon for you, but don't worry about it, you're fine.
I'm sorry I gave it just to Blackjack. It's theatrics. So then you can see, it was more like Claire got the guys out of there because Myrta was getting upset. Like Jamie was pretty chill.
Yeah, Jamie doesn't really care.
Yeah. So Myrta and Jamie go off to have a drink with my Minister of Finance, who's one of my favorites. And now it's just Claire and the Duke. And they're another like a quarrel with words, these two. They're like evil poets. And they're chatting. And I don't know how.
It's basically just that I don't remember exactly what the line was that like introduced.
Yeah,
Alex,
that's what I'm trying
Alex
to.
walks up.
It was, they were talking. He was like saying like, oh, it's so like you that you're already at French court and you've been able to like manipulate your way up in the class system like you did in Scotland, like stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Baby Randall comes in because he tells him that the fireworks are supposed to start, and I guess the Duke like likes fireworks or something.
Who doesn't like fireworks?
So he comes up and he's like, "Sir, the fireworks are going to start in 5 minutes." And then that's when the Duke is like, "Oh, how rude of me not to introduce you. This is Lady Claire Fraser, and this is my new secretary, Alexander Randall." And he just so happens to be the younger brother of Blackjack. And like, even though he's not Tobias, like the kid still looked like Blackjack. Like when I first saw him, I was like, oh.
Well, it's interesting because the reason I thought that Tobias was going to be appearing as Alex was because I also wasn't aware at that point when I made that comment that Blackjack was definitely still alive. I kind of assumed he was still alive. But was because when Claire first meets Alex Randall, before she's introduced to him as Alex Randall, she thinks it's Blackjack Randall. He walks in with the Duke of Sandringham. Jamie sees him and like nearly beats the shit out of him. Because he thinks it's Jonathan Randall, and then he says, "Hi, I'm Alex Randall." He's actually very cordial and very nice. Yeah. And as in the TV show, he says, "Oh, you know my brother. I must tell him that I've met you." And Claire thinks to herself, "Oh, you fool. Just must not have gotten the word." Like, it only happened like a month or so ago, or 2 months ago, or something. Perhaps he just hasn't heard yet that his brother's dead. And that goes on for a decent, huge chunk of the book.
Oh, see, that doesn't happen in here.
Yeah, in this, Alex says, "I'll have to tell my brother." And she's like, "But I thought your brother was dead." And he goes, "I hope not. I just heard from him a couple weeks ago." And so, confirmed that Jack is alive and just fine after his run-in with some bulls. So now it becomes, especially over the course of the next episode, like a source of anxiety for Claire.
Yeah.
In the book, she's not worried about Blackjack. She assumes he's dead until like halfway through the book.
I just think it's like interesting that like Claire, until she realizes that Blackjack is still alive, and she doesn't really put it all together with Mary Hawkins until the next episode, that like she doesn't even think that like, oh my god, I could have just killed off Frank. Like when they could have, like she didn't even think about that.
And I think that's how the book works it too, but because of the way they change the order of how things happen, in the book, she knows immediately upon hearing the name Mary Hawkins who she was supposed to be, that she was supposed to marry Jonathan Randall and have the kid that would eventually lead to her husband. But she thinks perhaps this was incorrect, perhaps the genealogy was incorrect, and he is not in fact a direct descendant of Jonathan Randall, but is maybe a descendant of Alex Randall or of somebody else.
And like but we should also mention about Mary Hawkins that we learned in episode 2 before we start. We learn a little bit more about her in episode 3, is that she is in France because her uncle arranged a marriage with a French nobleman who's much older and has warts on his face.
The Vicomte.
Yeah. He's older, he's got warts on his face, and she's like not into it.
Yeah, it's a very good match for her.
Financially speaking, yeah.
Financially speaking, but not so much because she's very young and innocent.
Yeah.
Like 15 or something.
And while they are at court, Mary Hawkins does go with Louisa and is seen talking to Alexander Randall in the corner, and Louisa makes a comment like, "Oh, she's already got a lover before she's even married."
By the way, their relationship is adorable. So that is how episode 2 ends. On to episode 3.
Episode 3, which now deals with the fact that Jamie is like now kind of becoming besties with Charles, and he's now constantly dealing with, running a business, kissing ass with Charles, and then trying to like get the Minister of Finance to like continue believing that the rebellion is a bad idea, while still telling Charles that he is still talking to the Minister of Finance about the rebellion. Yeah. And this causes him to not be home very often. Claire doesn't see him very often, and she's kind of feeling like she doesn't have much of a purpose besides getting up and making a mess for the servants to clean, and then going to Louisa's and having tea and playing cards.
She's bored, basically.
Yeah, she's basically bored, and which leads her to start volunteering at a hospital kind of thing in the city that's run by nuns.
Yes, she starts to volunteer at can't remember what it's called.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a volunteer Catholic hospital.
Myrta starts sleeping with Suzette. What else happens?
Jamie doesn't like that she's volunteering at the hospital.
Yeah, Jamie, there were some issues. There's some like Jamie and Claire friction that's starting to happen. That's interesting. And Jamie now is, even though he's like friends with Charles doesn't confide in him on anything. So he hires this pickpocket kid that he found on the streets.
Fergus is my favorite character.
Yeah, Fergus. But like his real name was like Claudine or something.
His real name is Claudel, but we decided it wasn't very manly, so we've decided on Fergus.
They call him, so now they renamed him, gave him a proper Scottish name. His name is Fergus, and he's like pickpocketing letters, giving it to Myrta and Jamie to decode or copy, and then he goes and brings them back. So they have like this really great system going on, all while Claire is now dealing with the information that she knows that Blackjack is alive, and she doesn't know how or when or if she should tell Jamie, to the point where she actually confides in Myrta, and Myrta's like, don't tell him,
he will go running back and then he will die.
So,
I liked episode 3 a lot. It's another one where they changed a few things significantly from the book. They actually made the friction between Claire and Jamie a lot worse than it is in the book. Which
is quite awkward.
Interesting. It's very awkward because it changes sort of how Fergus gets introduced. It changes a lot of things and how they deal with them. So I think, there are two major bits of this. There's Jamie's relationship with the Minister of Finance, Duvernay, and then there's his relationship with Charles Stuart and what happens from that. And then there's also Claire's, feeling of uselessness and needing to go and volunteer at this hospital. And my second favorite character, who is Bouton, who is the dog. He's amazing. So, I mean, Jamie's probably the thing that, pushes along the plot a lot more. He's, as you said, he's talking to Charles a lot, but he's not really getting anything of substance from him. So he knows he needs to somehow get more information. At the same time, he keeps beating the Minister of Finance at chess, which actually endears him to the Minister of Finance. And he convinces him to go with him to the brothel and meet with Charles Stuart and basically just tell him exactly what he tells Jamie, which is that Louis can't get embroiled in a war. He can't afford it.
It's not even that it's a war.
It's a campaign.
It's a campaign, and it's also completely changing alliance lines. I mean, France and England at this point are not good friends at all. But at any moment, if Louis were to side with a king with no throne, it would be even worse.
Right, he would have to do it surreptitiously.
The only way he would do it is if he was going to win 100%, was guaranteed to win.
Yes.
Because if not, there's really no coming back from that.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that Jamie's kind of smart to do, where he doesn't tell Duvernay that he's against the rebellion. He says that he's against it if they can't win. Unless they can definitely win, he doesn't think that they should even try. So he manages to play both sides really well. But then that backfires on him, because when they all meet at the brothel, Charles Stuart says to Duvernay, I actually already have most of the money committed by some wealthy English noblemen. All you would need to do is put me over the top. And that's when Jamie decides he's desperate. He needs information that he's not getting from Stuart in order to undermine this thing, because if he's already got the money, we're screwed.
Yeah.
No matter what he does, he's still going to mount the rebellion. So that's when he finds Fergus, he runs him down outside the brothel. And I love Fergus, he's adorable. And he brings him home. One thing that they don't mention in the show, that they do mention in the book that I thought was kind of interesting, was what Fergus's arrangement is with him.
Mm-hmm.
The arrangement, essentially, like the payment, is basically just room and board.
Yeah.
Like, they'll care for him, they'll feed him, they'll clothe him, they'll give him a place to sleep. But then there's also all of these other things, because pickpocketing is illegal. It always has been. It's stealing. So there are all these contingencies. So, like, if Fergus is caught and his hand cut off or something, then Jamie will support him for the rest of his life.
Okay.
If he's killed for pickpocketing, because he could very well be hanged, Jamie will provide him with a proper burial.
And this was like the little kid came up with
kid. He's 9 years old, and he comes to this agreement with this guy.
Good for him.
Because he lives in a brothel. Like, what's the kid gonna do?
I know. The best is, like, the first time he meets Claire, he, like, tells her that she has great boobs.
Yeah, because the women of the brothel like that, and they give him money and sweets and stuff.
So Fergus is cute.
I love Fergus. Fergus is hilarious. Like, in the book, he's so fun. He's also, like, a little sad because he's, this little urchin who just really needs people to care about him. But he's also so cute and so nice. He's adorable. There will be more awesome Fergus stuff later on. You'll enjoy Fergus. So that's sort of like Jamie's thing. But then Claire, her thing is all about, feeling useless and wanting to, it's like L'Hôpital or something like that is the place where she goes to volunteer.
Okay. Maybe before she even volunteers, she does go and have tea with Louisa and Mary Hawkins.
Oh, right. This whole conversation. I love this conversation.
And this is where, while she's having a conversation with the two, she starts piecing together how she knows and recognizes the name of Mary Hawkins. And
with Frank.
Yeah, with Frank.
I love Frank, and I'm so sad he's not in more of the show.
So Mary starts just, like, they're playing cards, and then, like, out of nowhere, she just goes, I can't marry Wartface. I don't know what his name is.
A Frenchman. I can't marry, the Vicomte, but also a Frenchman. In general.
I can't marry a Frenchman. And they're like, why? And she goes,
because of what they do.
Because what they do when they have sex. Like, what do they do? And she pretty much describes what sex is. And then so Claire was like,
Claire's just like, we need to have a talk.
We should probably talk about this before you get married. And, like, my whole entire time, once Claire has, like, the revelation, she's like, oh my God, she has a flashback to Frank. We did get a bit of Frank in this episode because it was a flashback with Frank in it. Of Frank finding, like, his old family Bible that starts back in the olden days, and I don't even know. I'm not very religious. I don't know if Tricia has one of these. A family Bible will start. The first page will have the like your family tree.
Yeah, we don't have one of those.
And and one that Claire and Frank found, the tree and the Bible started with the marriage of Jonathan Randall and Mary Hawkins. So down the line, Jonathan and Mary will meet and they will get married. So clearly either Mary marries Wartface and he dies very fast, and then she ends up marrying Blackjack, or I don't really know. It's kind of weird because I thought she would marry Alexander the way they were flirting at court, so I'm a little thrown off. I'm not sure what's going on there. But that's what's eventually going to happen. And that's when Claire realizes, like, oh my God, if I did kill Blackjack, that probably means Frank's dead. Remember Frank, the guy that you were married to before? But what I think is kind of, like, ironic is that Mary is so worried about marrying this old guy, and she's going to end up with, like, the most awful human being on the face of the planet.
Yep. It really sucks for Mary. I feel really bad for Mary.
I mean, I don't know how she gets to that point, but I'm just like, oh, sucks to be you.
Yeah, it really does.
She's, like, so, like, sweet and innocent, like, in, like, almost in an annoying way, but, like,
where you kind of want to smack her upside the head.
Yeah, we're just like, shut up. Like, you can't be, like, this naive. Like, that's, like, I'm just like, are you really?
But you really can be.
Yeah.
If you're an extremely sheltered, like, 15-year-old.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, I like that scene. I prefer the way that it happens in the book because it's not a conversation between the three of them.
Mm-hmm.
It happens at court.
Okay.
Mary is there and she's very shy and she's sort of hiding, and Claire realizes that she's like freaking out being at court. Like she doesn't know what to do around all these people. She doesn't understand French culture. She thinks it's worse than Jamie thinks. And so Claire sort of takes her and sticks her in an alcove and just says, no, just stay here. You'll be fine. You know, if you feel calm enough, you can come out and
You feel calm enough.
yeah, if you calm down and you want to come socialize with people, you can. If not, people will ignore you because you're stuck in this alcove.
Basically, she's like having a panic attack, like social anxiety.
Yeah. And so, you know, that's how Claire sort of endears herself to Mary. And then Mary comes to her at the same thing, like in the same conversation, and says like that she can't marry Frenchmen. It's the entire same conversation, only Louise is not there to laugh at her.
Yeah.
So it's basically just Claire going, oh crap, we should have a conversation about how it works. And she basically just says that is how it's supposed to work. Trust me, you get just as much out of it as they do. You know, she has a nice little sex talk with this girl that she barely knows, who's supposed to, you know, be the great, 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 great grandmother of her husband. So I liked that scene a lot more. I just thought it was a lot more endearing for the two characters. It was sort of a way for them to bond better than they did in that situation. But, you know, whatever. The way they did it was fine. Obviously, I'm not like, that was terrible. But yeah, so it's an interesting character anyway.
Yeah.
This totally innocent young girl who's about to marry a bastard.
Yeah.
Who doesn't even want women.
Well, I mean, I don't think that's fair to say. We've talked about Blackjack's sexuality. I think he's pretty gender neutral.
He's a sexual sadist. He really just needs to inflict pain, but he does.
That's what I mean. Okay.
Because that comes up more than once. It'll come up later this season, but also, you know, the whole thing with Jamie and the whole thing with Jenny, where he couldn't get it up.
Yeah.
So
but also, from in the show standpoint, and I talked about it when that actually happened, I felt like that was kind of not. I mean, you could say it was because Jenny was a girl, but I thought it was because she was laughing at him.
It was also
but she was manipulating the situation.
One also sort of precipitated the other. Like he couldn't get it up, and she started laughing at him. So then he got mad and still couldn't do it. So I can't say that like Blackjack Randall is gay. He can only get off when he's inflicting physical harm. So I'm sure he could easily have sex with a woman if he wanted to. I just don't know which he prefers. I feel like he prefers boys, but that's neither here nor there for the character. It's just that he likes to inflict pain is way more prescient. Yeah, so it sucks for Mary Hawkins. Her story's sad. But in the meantime, Claire's bored at home and she wants to do something more useful with her time. She discovers Murtaugh and her handmaid having sex, which was an interesting scene. I
mean, it was bound to happen. Like, Murtaugh needed someone.
Yeah.
He was clearly sexually frustrated.
Clearly sexually frustrated. And so Claire offers to get her birth control.
Yeah. Well, she says, have you guys thought about birth control? And Murtaugh was like, what?
What does that even mean?
And I think, did the French invent birth control? Or no, the French, I believe, now you can Google it, I'm not sure. I believe that the French invented Plan B.
That's possible.
But I'm not sure.
Oh, goodness.
Quote me on what I wanted. But yeah, so Claire goes off to her new friend in the village, or in the market. What's his name?
Monsieur Raymond.
Oh, God. All these French names.
It's Raymond, but Raymond.
Mr. Raymond.
Raymond.
Where out comes Saint Germain. I remember that.
Comte de Saint Germain, yes.
Saint Germain, who Raymond said they weren't friends, so Claire was like, what the hell? So she goes in there and you know, she kind of just sits there. She's going to get birth control, but I think she's just like bored and like misses being around people. So she kind of just sits there and listens to him talk. And then I think she thought that he was going to offer her a job after she talks about how she was like a healer and all this stuff. And he's like, no, I don't really need work people to help me, but there's a hospital that you can
It's always
volunteer.
looking for people because, you know, they take only medical volunteers. So she goes down there straight away. And that's another big deviation from the book. In the book, because in the show, it causes a lot of friction between her and Jamie.
Mm-hmm.
In the book, she hears about this, goes to Jamie and says, can I do this?
Fuck that.
And after some argument, which they have the argument in the show, but it ends a lot better because it ends with him saying, you know, if you must because you're bored and you want to feel useful, fine, go ahead and do that. But, you know, just be careful.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, God forbid perfect Jamie Fraser looks like kind of a little bit of an asshole for once.
Well, and that's something that I think we should mention is that one of the things that we hated about last season was that Jamie was freaking perfect.
Yeah. But like
All
this is
literally
literally like the first time like Jamie has been like kind of like a little bit of like a sexist dick and like not understanding like Claire's needs and like people are like, oh my god, why is he being so mean? I don't
He's
like
really whiny. Like she comes back from the hospital and like she explains what she was doing and she says like I just wanted to feel useful. And yeah, I feel good about doing this, but it's not for selfish reasons, like I'm helping people.
Yeah.
And he says, well, God forbid I could feel good about myself.
Yeah. And like and then he complained like how he came home from like a hard day at work and he wanted to talk to his wife about stuff and she wasn't home. Oh, like little baby. I was just like, shut up.
Yeah, me too. I was just like, God, Jamie, like she's there for you to talk to.
Yeah.
Just not immediately upon your arrival at home.
She was there when he like came home in the beginning of the city. He comes home and like he was home for like 5 minutes and he left. Oh, excuse me.
Yeah.
But can we just talk about how the fact that like Claire goes to volunteer at a hospital for like dying sick people that don't have anywhere else to go, and she goes like in this like huge organza silk dress.
In the book, they give her stuff to change into.
They give her an apron that doesn't even cover the whole. Like it was just like, why?
Well, because her dress goes like out like this.
I know. I'm just like, what? Why are you wearing that?
Yeah,
I just thought it was so asinine to me. And she even went in a hat. She did take the hat off, but she came out of the carriage. And Myrta Myrta went with her, and he was like, Jamie's not gonna like this. I'm just gonna let you know. And then when they get home, Jamie starts like complaining, and Myrta's like, I told you so, and then he just leaves.
He just leaves.
But yeah, like Jamie's just complaining the whole time that she's doing it. And like there was like one time that I was like, he kind of has a point when he says like, well, you're not thinking about the baby, which in like I don't know if she really like was like, oh shit, I'm pregnant, because she like is like tasting people's urine and stuff.
But that's never gonna hurt her.
Yeah.
Like, she's smart enough to know to stay away from infectious diseases. But then again,
but the whole thing is Jamie doesn't know that.
But well, she knows that he knows that she's smart enough to do that.
Yeah, but I mean, he doesn't know everything she's been vaccinated with and like what could happen.
Right, but like even forgetting that, if she says I'm only going to work in the wards that deal with injury, not infectious diseases.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to be careful. She's not thinking like I need to do this stuff, fuck my child. Like, you know, she doesn't want to hurt her pregnancy.
Yeah. I also thought it was I mean, I shouldn't be laughing. When she helps the one patient, she tastes the guy's urine.
Woman.
Oh, was it a woman?
Yeah.
She tastes the urine, and she goes, oh. And there's a voiceover, and she goes, oh, diabetes. She goes, oh, but it took me a couple minutes to say what it was because I had to think of what they called it back then, and it was literally called the sugar disease.
It was sugar sickness. And I don't know if that's actually what they called it in the 1800s. In the book, it's not. I had to remember what they called it in the 1800s. It was like, I knew they wouldn't know the term diabetes, so I had to come up with something that was appropriate for the time period.
Yeah. But it's just like, that's what it was, sugar sickness.
Yeah, it's diabetes. Like, she's suffering from very serious diabetic shock, and she's not going to make it because it's not like they have injectable insulin. So, yeah. So like, and I like that they have a urinoscopy as a profession, which is basically just smelling urine to tell you what someone has.
Mm-hmm.
Which I wonder how well that worked for things that weren't, diabetes.
I mean, there's other things that you could.
Yeah, I mean, there are other renal diseases, but I don't know. I mean, diabetes, I think, is a relatively easy one to diagnose based on how sugary your urine is, because your body can't process sugar.
Last half hour, we talked about a king pooping. Now we're talking about tasting urine.
Oh, this is just a family program.
Woo!
It's a nonstop party here. But anyway, so I liked all the stuff with her at the hospital. I love Mother Hildegard.
She's awesome.
I love her. She's hilarious, and she's awesome.
This is like when like nuns were like really secret feminists that just like didn't want to deal with men.
Yeah, basically. I love Bouton, who is the dog. In the book, he's a bulldog, but I wonder if bulldogs were just really difficult to train.
Probably. I mean, and then when you think about it,
if you're a schnauzer.
Yeah, but if you're a sick person, do you want a giant bulldog jumping on top of you and like smelling your bits to figure out?
I don't think he jumped on top of people very often in the show. I mean, in the book, but this like schnauzer version.
God.
But I love Bouton. I love his relationship with Mother Hildegard, and you don't see as much of it in the show as you did in that like section of the book. But like Mother Hildegard talks to Claire, like, because Claire realizes that Bouton is trained to like smell certain things, so he can smell infections that you can't see and different things like that. Claire recognizes that he has different ways of signaling what it is. Whereas all of these like medical professionals, because they only show a couple of the people who like consider themselves medical professionals, but there actually are like physicians that come to whatever the place is, something or other, and that volunteer there, but not very often. But Claire is the only one who realizes that Bouton is actually useful. And Mother Hildegard essentially talks to her and is like, yeah, those guys are idiots. Like, they don't realize they won't accept the help of my dog. And that's why that conversation is what makes them friends. Because Claire respects Bouton.
Whereas I don't think it's until like she tastes the piss that
well, she tastes the piss in the same spot in the book. Like, she does that immediately. That's how she gets hired, is because she diagnoses diabetes. But they don't become friends until like Mother Hildegard respects her ability as a woman and as a physician, but she doesn't like her very much until she realizes that she likes her dog, which I liked, and I thought it was fun. But then Mother Hildegard is also the thing that essentially like rectifies Jamie and Claire's relationship.
I mean, yeah. So I mean, Jamie and Claire. It's been getting frosty since I guess since court. Like, they were kind of like lovey-dovey at court, and then since Jamie's just been like working nonstop. God, he works so hard. There's just been distance. I mean, I don't think they've had sex since they conceived their child.
Well, What's-Her-Face says they haven't had sex.
Yeah, Suzette, who's banging Myrta, tells Myrta that, how could there be love in a sexless marriage kind of thing. Because every time Jamie goes to have sex, especially with Claire, he just like gets flashes of
which we haven't talked about yet, but we definitely should.
Yeah. So Jamie's having some awful nightmares and flashbacks revolving his notorious one night stand with BJ.
No, one night torture session.
Yeah.
Torture and rape session, which I like that they're showing, because that's something that they don't show a lot of in the book. Like, Jamie's definitely still dealing with the fallout from everything that happened to him. But in the show, they're actually showing you Jamie's perspective.
Yeah.
So you see that he's still dealing with the trauma. Which I really thought was a good decision.
Yeah, and I mean, like, Claire's not pushing it or anything. She does her original trip to Raymond was to get something to help Jamie sleep at night, which I don't know if she's actually ever given to him because it was never talked about otherwise. And clearly it's not helping if she did give it to him. But he's still having these nightmares and they just haven't been intimate. And now with Jamie continuously working and his disapproval of Claire now volunteering at the hospital, it's just like not going well for the two of them. And on top of it, Claire has this crippling news that Blackjack is alive and she doesn't know what to do with it. But through Fergus's pickpocketing, they come across a letter, or going off someplace that was stamped, that is sheet music. And they're not really sure. It's in German, and they're not really sure exactly what it is. And then I don't know which Einstein thinks it might be a code. I don't know if it was Jamie or Myrta came up with that.
I think Jamie just kind of figures that it's got to mean something.
Yeah, like why would you be sending this, kind of, if it wasn't? And then I guess Jamie does listen to Claire because he was like, well, isn't that Mother, like Claire says that Mother Hildegard was a classically trained composer, so she should know how to read the music, because Myrta and Jamie don't know how to read music.
They were not musicians.
So Jamie heads to hospital, and that's kind of where the rekindling of their romance happens.
Yeah, Jamie brings the music to Mother Hildegard and asks her to read it and tell him what it is, and she explains that it's messed up. For some reason, on every line, it repeats the same melody, but the key changes for no reason. And he and Claire just kind of go, the key is the key. They've figured out the cipher. Every code needs a cipher. They figured out this is the cipher, and they plug the cipher into the code and the letters, and finally they can read them. And then that's when Jamie finds out that Charles Stuart was not lying about these British noblemen he has, who are giving him money, and that, whoever his contact is in England says that he can get him £40,000, committed from these people. And they sort of decide that because it's signed S, or it might be signed S, it's the only thing that's left over after the code, that it's got to be the Duke of Sandringham, and that he's essentially hedging his bets. He's basically playing the spread, and he's funding both England and Scotland so that he comes out on top no matter who wins.
Yeah. And I don't know why it took them so long to figure out that it was probably the Duke of Sandringham, because he's already a known person that has been playing the both sides since we first met him. In the letter, in the coded music, it also mentions that he'll be back to France at the end of the month. At court, the Duke tells Jamie, Myrta, and Claire that he'll be returning at the end of the month and would like to purchase some wine from them. So there was other clues besides just the S that I would be like, oh, it's probably the Duke. But
they go with just the S.
Yeah, so there was other things that they clearly know that have been stated to their faces that could have also come to that conclusion. So now the problem is Charles isn't lying. He is getting money. He doesn't have as much money as he's telling the Minister of Finance, but he does have it, and he might have enough to still convince France to come in. So their plan is to host a dinner and have the Duke there and have Charles there, and to kind of see what happens.
Right. They have a problem in that Charles wasn't lying, but they also have, some benefit, and now they know the code.
Yeah.
So now
they know the players, I guess. They know who's dealing with it.
Right. They actually have, their work is now paying off. They have information. Yeah. They know they can keep getting information. So the likelihood that they undermine the rebellion is still pretty high.
Yeah. But with that all being done, now comes this a personal crisis that is going to happen. Whereas if the Duke comes into the house, that would mean that Alexander Randall will be coming, And if Jamie meets Alexander Randall, then he's going to kind of find out that Blackjack is alive. And he's also going to find out that both Claire and Myrta have known this and haven't told him.
Yes.
So
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
And Myrta kind of coaches Claire, saying, like, well, now, like, I told you not to tell him, but now if we're going to have them come in to the house, go to dinner, you have to tell him.
Mm-hmm.
And Claire, because Claire hasn't seen Jamie so happy, they've had a friction relationship, is just kind of overjoyed and just kind of wants to, you know, enjoy this moment of happiness before she has to tell him.
Yeah, but that's something that is a big deviation because they know that Blackjack is alive. That creates this concern for this dinner. In the book, because they have no idea, and because Jamie was present when she met Alex Randall the first time, none of that issue exists.
Yeah.
So they've created this whole new level of conflict in the show that doesn't exist in the book, which I don't think is bad, because they have this added need to create individual episode-to-episode conflict, whereas the book can just have a chapter where basically nothing happens except exposition.
Yeah.
Having that happen in an hour-long TV show would probably bore the shit out of your audience.
Yeah.
Granted, it's boring the crap out of me in the book, but, you know. I'm not a fan. It's not my kind of book. It's so long.
Yeah.
Too much stuff. But it is interesting that they decided to add that level of conflict. That definitely.
I think they probably just had to, just to spice things up.
Just to make things more, you know, more interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, the main villain in the book, for at least part of the book anyway, is the Comte de Saint-Germain.
And we've only literally seen him maybe 3 minutes of airtime.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out on the show. You know, I'm intrigued by the way they're going with it, and I'm interested to see if, you know, if that's going to cause further deviation down the line.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I like these 2 episodes. They were good.
They were good episodes.
I like the season.
I still don't know, like, if how many episodes are we getting?
I'm going to assume 16 until I'm told otherwise.
Yeah, they haven't announced that they're splitting it again.
Yeah.
So, like, I mean, if someone that's watching this knows what's happening, please let us know, because they haven't said anything.
There's a really good place in the book to split the seasons, just like there was in the last book. There's a little over halfway through the book, there's a bam right there, a good split.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if they split it again.
I know, like, as far as Star's programming, Power, which usually follows Outlander when it's done, isn't returning to July. So in terms of episodes, you know, the weeks, it could be full season.
It could be full season, but we don't know.
Yeah.
We will find out, though.
Yeah.
If they do split it, if it is 16 episodes and they do split it, that means we have 5 more episodes.
Yeah.
Before this half of the season is up. There's a lot that has to get accomplished in that time, so.
I mean, yeah, there's still characters that we haven't even met.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's saying, and I know IMDb isn't completely reliable, but they only have 13 episodes listed.
It would have to be more than 13 episodes. There's way too much stuff that happens in this book. Unless they split it by season. Unless it's, you know, season 2 is the first half of Dragonfly and Amber and season 3 is the second half.
But I mean, episode 13 is called Dragonfly and Amber. So I feel
but
like
that
would
doesn't necessarily mean anything.
Whatever.
The Dragonfly and Amber in question is actually something she gets in the first book.
From the guy that they saw after.
It's a wedding gift.
Yeah, from that hobo guy in Scotland.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, it's actually because she mentions it in the chapter I just read. She talks about how the one that she'd gotten earlier has a dragonfly in it. So, I mean, I'm sure there's some sort of symbolic reason why it's called Dragonfly and Amber.
You just haven't got there yet.
I just haven't gotten there yet. I still have so much time left on this book because as I've said before, I listen to the audiobooks because it's just, I will read more of it faster that way. And it's 39 hours long, and I have 15 hours left.
That's crazy.
23 hours into it. It's so long.
Who reads it?
I don't remember the woman's name. British lady.
That I
She's a good narrator, and the book's not bad. It's just so dense. It's like reading Tolkien, but women Tolkien.
Okay. There you go.
You know, or like Tolkien books are obviously written with dudes in mind. This one's very obviously written with women in mind.
Yeah. I mean, hello, Jamie Fraser.
Yeah, and all the sex.
Yeah.
Lots of sex and the boobs.
Lots of boobs.
Just lots of that. But yeah, it's so dense. So it's not my style really, but you know, it's interesting to see the differences and see what they do with the TV show, and to be able to say like they're actually making good choices, whether or not, you know, they're better or worse than the show, in the movie, than the book, whatever it is. I'm tired. You know, is something that I think is debatable, but they're definitely better for the medium.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to be able to compare and contrast the two. But we've been talking for a little too long, so I think that we should wrap this up. Do you have any predictions, thoughts? I can't predict, obviously, but you can.
I don't know. Every week it just changes.
More Murtaugh.
I mean, we've got, like, my dream has come true pretty much. There's a lot of Murtaugh. I don't see him going away anytime soon. So,
I'll stick around.
Yeah.
More Murtaugh. That's all Kait wants.
More Murtaugh.
Him is all she wants.
I love him so much. I am probably #1 Murtaugh fan.
Very possibly.
I'm just going to consider myself that.
The #1 Murtaugh fan. All right, well, that wraps it up for us here at Two Chicks, One Show. You can find us online. I am at Tricia Ennis. She is at Kait Calabro.
I don't know why my overlay didn't come on.
I don't either, but you didn't get to be Lady Kait Calabro for this one.
I know. God. Ugh.
At Tricia Ennis, at Kait Calabro, at allgeek2me.net is the website. Hashtag Two Chicks, One Show, which you can't see because of my white walls. On
you
Twitter.
Can't see it on mine because I don't have an overlay.
Let us know what you thought of the episode, what you think of our commentary. Tell us what your favorite part was, your least favorite part. Do not give away any spoilers if you are a book reader, but please feel free to correct my idiocy if I mentioned anything that was incorrect about the books. Don't spoil it for Kait, though.
Only make comments about correcting Tricia.
Yes, only make comments about correcting me or commenting on things that happened in these 2 episodes, because we do not want to spoil Kait. She is largely spoiler-free, so it would be nice to keep it that way. We will see you next time. Goodbye.